that you're the expert.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing too. Like I don't do as many lease options now as I used to, because I'm doing like 2 or 3 different, I mean, just personally from where our business is at now, we're doing some regular wholesaling. We're doing some vacant land flipping, and we're doing lease options, right? We're doing some buy and hold.
Yeah.
And I also spend a lot of time on doing my podcast and teaching and stuff like that. I'm training my boys how to get into real estate investing now. But lease options have always been my favorite strategy, because it's like so little competition, so few people doing it. And I've gotten to a point out now where, like, I'd rather help somebody do a deal and partner with them on the deal than try to do it on my own, because it's more fulfilling for me. And I would rather coach somebody and partner with them and help them get their real estate business going, and partner with them on the lease options, so that it can help other people. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but like I love the teaching and the coaching part of this business, and doing my podcast and writing the books. And
yeah. And you do a lot of deals with students these days, which is something I think is really cool just to watch you. I see you on Facebook, and I see a lot of the action that you are out in the arena doing with other students.
The last 2 months, we've done over $155,000 in profits on deals in the last 2 months. And we're doing a lot of those deals virtually. Well, they're all virtually. I still do some deals in St. Louis. Like in St. Louis, we're doing mostly cash deals. I'm partnering with a guy, and I'm doing the marketing for the buyers. And then in down south, we're partnering with some of our students, and so we're actually doing the marketing for them, and we're pre-screening the leads and giving it to them. And they are converting the leads, and we're splitting the deals 50-50. So we do a lot of that with our private clients, which is, I mean, I get such a kick out of that. It's so much more fun for me. I'd rather, instead of building my own acquisitions team, I would rather teach this stuff and then partner with people who are my private clients and students and do deals with them instead.
Yeah, I love seeing you do that. So just a couple more questions before we dive back into the mind map. Rewinding back when we were talking about you're only responsible for the first $500 in repairs when you're doing a sandwich deal. You said they still have their property insurance, and that brought the question to mind. Do you ever have to have, as someone in the middle of a sandwich lease option deal, do you ever have to have any additional insurance to cover yourself or to cover anything in that type of transaction?
No. I mean, I do have a professional liability insurance policy.
But not anything on that property specifically?
No. You do have to make sure that the seller has landlord policy, because the seller's still on title.
Yeah.
I'm not taking over the mortgage. I'm not transferring the deed, which is another reason why I love this. I mean, if you've heard of subject twos, those make me nervous because they raise the mortgage red flags.
Mm-hmm. Triggering the due on sale clause.
Triggering the due on sale clause. Or just like, if you were to sit down, if a homeowner were to go to their attorney and say, should I deed my house over to this investor and keep the mortgage in my name? What do you think the attorney's going to say? No.
He's going to say no. Yeah.
But if the seller said, well, I've got this, I'm going to lease option this property to this investor, and I'm still going to maintain control of it. That's I feel it protects the seller better. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I love the lease options better. And, but there's a place for subject twos, and there's a place for owner financing. But I think subject twos specifically, where you're taking over the mortgages, work better for short-term transactions. Like for a short term, while maybe you're rehabbing the house and you're fixing it up and then you're going to sell it. Maybe you can do a subject to on a short-term basis like that.
So one of the important steps I'm hearing, regardless of whether it's a sandwich deal or you're going to wholesale the lease option, is to make sure that the owner of the property contacts their insurance company and changes to a landlord policy versus a homeowner's policy, right?
Yeah. That was the question about insurance. So the seller has to have landlord policy, just like it would be any rental. And then for my insurance, I have my own liability, professional, personal liability with my own insurance company. But sometimes you might want to you don't have to, but it might be recommended to get a home warranty plan, which would cover the major appliances if something happens to them.
And I think that, tell me if this is not true, but I think that wouldn't be like a legal requirement, but it would just be a good idea to make things simple for when the wild card thing occurs, you've got something that easily handles it and doesn't make the owners feathers get ruffled.
Yes, right. And also, one more thing I'll say is when that tenant buyer that I put in the house gives me their $5,000 for their option deposit, it doesn't have to sit in an escrow account, but it's always a good idea to save at least half of that into an emergency savings account. So if something does happen in the future, you're not caught with your shorts at your ankles. You know what I'm saying? That sounds bad.
Right.
But like you need that emergency money in case something bad happens. And that could also be an insurance for you.
All right. Last question before we dive back into the mind map that I wrote down is, when you're wholesaling a lease option, you said you're going to be stepping out, right? You're going to be handing that off to somebody else. You step out of the middle. How and when do you let the owner of the property know that you're no longer going to be part of the equation?
Yeah. So when I'm talking to the seller, I'm always approaching it as a sandwich lease option first. Like, I'm going to stay in the middle. I'm an investor. I'm looking for an investment property. I will be the tenant buyer, right? I'm going to take care of the property. I'm going to maintain it. I'll pay the rent every month, whether it's vacant or not. It's my investment property. I'll be in the middle. I'm going to stay in the middle. But if the seller, like if we can't agree on a price, then I might say something like, well, you know what? We have the same ceilings that are sloping up. I just noticed that, JP.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So I might tell the seller, if they can't give me that price that I'm looking for a sandwich lease option, and I'm only looking at like a discount of 10 to 15% off of the ARV. But if they still can't do that or don't want to do that, I say, well, what if me or one of my buyers could help make your mortgage payments for you, take care of the maintenance and repairs? What would you want to do then? That wouldn't work, would you? Would it? So then I position it as maybe one of my buyers would come into my shoes and take my place. So I tell them, I say, listen, this is probably how it's going to work. I'll give you a lease option contract to lease option your house at this price. But when I find a good qualified tenant buyer that I feel like has a good realistic chance of getting a mortgage in 1 or 2 years, I'm going to sell my contract to them, and I'm going to keep that option deposit money they put down on the home as my assignment fee. And so I just tell them that I'm going to assign this contract, and I'm going to sell this contract to this tenant buyer, and I might make $3,000 to $5,000, depends on the deal. I usually will give the seller a certain percentage of that, maybe 1 month's rent, and I keep the difference. If you're just getting started, what if you just told the seller, listen, let's do this. You give me this lease option contract. I'm trying to negotiate the best deal you can. And you tell them, I will sell this contract to this tenant buyer, and we'll just split the assignment fee 50-50, or we'll split the option deposit 50-50. Is that fair? Almost every seller is going to say, yeah, that's fine. So you split it 50-50 with them. And then, then one more thing I tell the seller too is that you get the final approval of who I assign it to. Because in my contracts, there's an assignment agreement, and the seller has to sign that assignment agreement. So all three parties sign it: the seller, the tenant buyer, and me, the A, the B, and the C. And so that also kind of puts the seller at ease. I'm not just going to assign it to anybody. And I work closely with mortgage brokers who will tell me if this potential tenant buyer has a realistic chance of getting a mortgage in 1 or 2 years.
Okay, so part of the due diligence of looking at anybody in that on the end of that, the C part of the transaction is syncing them up with your mortgage broker and making sure that they give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks for the.
I hope we're not diving too deep into the weeds on lease options and stuff, but I want to just let everybody know, when you're doing Zillow marketing, you've got to be a transactional engineer. You can't just be a one-trick pony. You need to know how to do some of these more creative type of deals if you really want to make Zillow work for you. Because, again, would you rather have 1 out of 30 leads turn into a deal, or would you rather have 3 out of 30 leads turn into a deal?
Yeah, and if we got a little too in the weeds there, if anybody was like, "Whoa, I don't understand, my head's spinning," then that was I'm the one who tossed all the questions at Joe. Everybody has access to your wholesaling lease options
Yep.
PDF. So if you want to do a deeper dive into understanding it, I highly recommend you go into the resources and the downloads and print it off and digest it over lunch or dinner.
Yeah, good.
We dive back into the mind map?
Let's do that. I'll share mine here. All right. We've already kind of talked about why lease options. That works in any market, in a down market, up market. Today we have a large, I try not to dive too deep into what kind of market we're in now, because honestly it doesn't matter. But I will say this, as the market starts to go down, it becomes easier to do lease options. But you can still do lease options when the market's going up. There will always be sellers that want to sell but can't, buyers that want to buy but can't for various reasons. Okay, so there's a huge there's a small little pool of sellers that have a lot of equity and a lot of motivation, but a much bigger pool of sellers that have high motivation and just a little bit of equity. And
you said earlier that what you're really going for when you're talking to somebody about a lease option strategy is like a 15% discount off of value.
Yeah, I only need 10 to 15%.
I got to have 50% or nothing.
Yeah. That's why I have so little competition.
Yeah.
Everybody's going after these 50% equity deals, and I'm doing deals for the 10 to 15%. Even the 0 to 10%, I'm doing deals on those. So offering a lease option lets me give today's market value that the sellers are asking for. Okay. Sellers today need this exit option more than they have in the years past. We're getting to a point now, you're starting to see pre-foreclosures starting to rise, foreclosures starting to rise. Again, remember those days back then, they're coming back. More short sales are happening. So sellers, as market conditions start to slow down, houses are sitting on the market longer. It's so funny. I mean, I'm talking to more and more rehabbers, JP, that are coming to me saying, hey, can we do a lease option on this house? We just rehabbed it. We've fixed it up. And 6 months ago, it would have sold like that. But now it's been on the market for 4 months, and we keep on lowering the price, and we can't sell it. You're hearing this a lot now going on in markets. Well, they're coming to me, these rehabbers. And by the way, all of you all out there, a lot of the properties you'll find on Zillow that are listed for rent are properties that were rehabbed by investors, and they tried to sell it and they couldn't. So now it's listed for rent and for sale. Those are perfect lease option candidates, right? This also happens to be the highest and best use of the largest percentage of leads using this Z code strategy. But we've already been talking about this. My favorite strategy is lease options when it comes to these deals. Okay, we talked about wholesaling lease options, the book. You all should have the PDF of the book. It's one of the bonuses we gave to you guys. And I'm also including, just as a special free little gift here, the short offer form. This is the initial contract that I use on a wholesaling lease option deal. If I got a seller that says, yeah, I would do a lease option, instead of burying them in 10 pages of lease option legalese, language, contracts and stuff, I'm just going to give them a one-page contract. And this is a short, little, simple one-page contract that gives me equitable interest in the property, that gives me time then to go figure out, like, what am I going to do with this thing? Am I going to do a sandwich lease option? Am I going to flip it? Or am I going to do an Airbnb? What can I do with this? And then there's more paperwork after I find a tenant buyer or decide what I'm going to do. But this is the best thing that I've used just to get it signed so I can get it under contract. And also, you'll notice here, I make it non-exclusive in number 8 down here, because I make it easy for the seller. I'm not going to tie up the property while I'm trying to figure out what to do. If the seller sells it before I do, that's fine. They can cancel my agreement. So I'm not tying it up. I make it, it's almost like no-brainer. Like, there's no risk to the seller when I
really think that's a beautiful part of this, because if you put yourself in their shoes, this is new to most of us. It's going to seem like an alien to them. Like, this is like, what kind of smoke and mirrors are you trying to pull on me? So you've got to use, the credibility that you build with them, and also the ability to keep things simple and clear. That's what I enjoy about this document in of itself, is it's one side of one piece of paper, and it's written in plain English, not legalese. And that very last item, number 8, makes it a no-brainer, like you said, where I got no risk here. Like, you know, if he decides to make this exclusive or put me in a corner, then this gets me out of it. It's beautiful.
Let me clarify too. This agreement becomes exclusive when I find a tenant buyer for the property. Okay. So as soon as I find a tenant buyer, or I decide what I'm going to do with the property, then I have the rest of the paperwork that then binds it and makes it exclusive at that point. But that could take me 2 to 3, 4 weeks before I get that. So I'm just giving the seller that 2 to 4 week window, and maybe more, maybe 1 or 2 months, where it is non-exclusive. Cool.
Beautiful.
All right. So diving deeper into my lease option strategy, obviously this is, we're going to be, you'll be getting more information if you haven't already. I have a class called Simple Lease Options that teaches this strategy and dives deeper into it. But I think we covered it, didn't we? The foundation here?
I think so. I think the stage is set for us to get tactical on this here.
I love it.
Strategy.
Okay.
All right, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next video. High five.